Father was with me out there, no doubt, has kept me strong and kept me safe, and never take life for granted. My purpose with Brian was to reinstill his faith with God, you know, like he was losing some faith, and he had the heart of God in him. He was the nicest, caring, generous, honest guy. The physics of the plane crash, because as we got caught by a wind shear, we were pushed down like a pancake, perfectly flat. There was no nosedive. There was no premonition that we were going down or going to hit. It was a complete surprise. And what happened is the wheels hit first. The plane is going to rotate sharply forward and then slam to a stop as the broad wings hit the water and stop motion. The propeller is going to go in and slow down. Because in that motion is a slingshot. We both probably launched through the windshield. So the propeller coming up came up and jabbed up into my chest as I slammed forward into it and dug in and cut deep. So Brian wanted to take me flying, really saw his huge heart. He was the nicest guy and the best mechanic. He's a great pilot. Take me to his favorite spot, Shelter Cove on the Lost Coast outside of Humboldt. Had a beautiful afternoon having lunch at the cafe, going down to the beach. And just everything was so divinely aligned. We had a good time. Like, he was laughing and smiling. He felt really good. We saw the fog at the end of the runway. It looked like we had plenty, just like the landing that we kind of ended up in a little bit. But it was much different than what we thought. Always ran through the instruments, all the pre-flight checklist procedures, went for takeoff. We got to the end of the runway, entered fog, in which we turned right about 90 degrees to go over the cliff and the ocean. Couldn't see a thing. I looked down and saw the water way too close. And before I could say or do anything, we got hit by a very strong, turbulent downdraft wind shear, that kind that makes you feel weightless, and we hit the water, and it was extreme violence, and I thought maybe this is it, but ended up just underwater. So I came up to the surface moaning. I was hitting the chest so hard, and I couldn't breathe, and were kicked by an elephant. I was able to catch my breath, start breathing, look down, saw blood in the water, felt my chest, a big hole in my chest, and floating bone. My concern was sharks. Here, there are great whites, and these are very seal-rich waters, very rich fishing waters, and I'm chumming the water with my blood. So I kept my hand on my wound, realized that I'm okay. I kicked off my shoes, my brand new Asic gels. I kicked them off instinctually because you can't swim well with shoes. I looked over and saw Brian and watched the plane sink. I yelled out to Brian, "How you doing? How are you? Are you okay?" Got over to him. The plane. He was obviously completely disoriented and in shock, and I saw that he was really struggling to swim. Like, he was exerting a lot of energy trying to stay up. And so I came over to him. "Hey, we got to swim to shore." We had no way to know if anyone knew we had crashed, because there was no way someone saw us crash because of the thick fog. I could not see the shore. I could hear the waves crashing. He would respond, "Oh, swim. Which way do we go?" And I was like, "This way." And he was really struggling. So I came up behind him and worked to keep his head above water, because he was bobbing and struggling and flailing, and obviously was not a good swimmer. So I came up from behind and said, "Hey, lay on your back, take deep breaths, breathe in, hold your breath." That's a secret in the water. If you take a full breath of air and hold it, one, you're not going to inhale water while you're holding your breath, and two, that's a big airbag. It keeps you afloat. Well, I kept one hand on my wound and one arm around him, was kicking. He's a big guy. He wasn't really helping. We were moving very slow, and I wanted to get to shore ASAP. I didn't know how wounded he was. He had a bump on his head that was bleeding. The fog began to clear, and I could see there was no way we could land on this coast. Extremely jagged rocks, 5 to 8 foot crashing swells, about 100-foot cliffs straight up. I didn't see any beach. I didn't see any way through. White water, crashing waves. realized that if we got caught in one of those, we're toast. But at that point, I realized that swimming directly to shore was not safe, and swam back out to get away because we were getting pulled in at that point. I didn't want to get stuck in a current that had us getting crushed. Okay, before I go on with the survival story, my survival story, I want to go honor Brian's passing, because I think I held him for a lot longer than I didn't know when he passed. I just was holding him up. And when he became kind of lifeless and I wasn't sure, I just held his head up because his body was just floating. He's a fat guy and it floats, and he was floating, and I just held his head up and was just yelling at him, "Brian! Brian!" You know, just I feel like just one of those scenes in a movie where you just want to slap him and breathe. But, you know, waves were crashing over us. There was no way to stop water from going onto his face. He just faded away. There was no response to my yelling at him and shaking him and trying to get any kind of response out of him. And water was filling his nose and mouth. And I said my goodbyes to him. I had to decide, do I let him go? I could not bear to let him be taken by the sea and ravage him. I kept him with me. And for whatever reason, even though he had passed and was not with me consciously or in spirit or alive, just him being there was a comfort. There was no way I was going to let him go. So, in honor of you, Brian, I'm glad you got to die in your favorite place in the world, doing what you loved most. Although I know you didn't like to swim because you sucked at it. Okay, so here I am in the water with lifeless Brian, and my main concern at this point is, does anyone know we're out here? And there might be beaches further down, like where we rested that afternoon, where it looked like it's safe to land. And then the sirens came, which was a huge relief. Okay, we're going to be rescued. It was still foggy, but I saw the rescue lights up on the top of the cliff, which as the fog cleared, I knew they were watching me. I waved, "Help, help, help," and they bleeped on their sirens, acknowledging they knew my presence. I just had to wait it out. Sorry. It was a waiting situation, and it was a long wait. I think almost anybody else in that situation, or if I wasn't fat like I am right now, I'm pretty chubby for me. I'm usually ripped and lean, but thank God I wasn't, because this fat kept me alive. It was a bit of a current, and I was trying to stay around this one outcropping and where they were watching me. It was so full of adrenaline, I don't even recall being cold or thinking about it. The danger would be to lose consciousness and go under, but I felt extremely lucid and conscious. And then there was the jet ski, and then I heard it from a distance, and then circled way around me, all the way around me. And what I did was I took off Brian's shoe, grabbed off one of his white socks, and was waving it around, screaming, until finally they spotted me, came over. It was two men on like a water ski, jet ski with a sled on the back. We were way overweight, and it was very unstable, and we almost capsized about 3 times. I was hanging on to him and then I saw the headlights on the amphibious boat. We went over to the boat, and I was able to get over onto the boat, perch myself up in front, and wedge myself in. Focus was on trying to resuscitate Brian, who was underwater and gone for far too long. At that point, nearly an hour, 50 minutes to an hour since we hit the water. And then once we got to shore, this thing had retractable tracks or something. It climbs out on the boat ramp. They were able to get me onto a gurney, throw me into an ambulance, slap hot packs on me. Once I was in the ambulance, these crew was efficient and awesome. I was shaking violently, like I was dangerously hypothermic. They covered me in blankets, and then they took me off in the helicopter, which was I think it was a Hughes 550 kind of style helicopter. It was badass, and they were awesome. They were surprised because I was like, I love helicopters, and they were like, sorry you can't watch. They took me to Reading Hospital, where they took me to the trauma center, and this is where maimed and obviously unconscious people end up. And I'm there joking on the table, telling them, how bad is it, doc? Like, what's going on here, though? I had surprisingly little damage. There's no broken bones. No broken bones. I couldn't believe it. Just cartilage. There's still a popping going on here. There's a disconnect from my rib to my sternum. I have a broken big toe that is shattered at the base of my big toe. They say it might need a pin. And just thank you all for being here. And just want to say again, just like, never give up hope. Faith is the survival tool. And tell everyone you love that you love them right now, because you never know. You might lose them. I think I am Stitch, by the way. Nearly indestructible. I love this guy. Peace out.